Bring in show music, please.
Hi, I'm CNBC producer Katie Kramer. Today on Squawk Pod. The Paris Olympics begin today. Millions are headed to France for the events. So where is everybody staying? Airbnb CEO Brian Chesky says many have booked with him.
We are literally hosting hundreds of thousands of people. In fact, the number of people we're hosting, you could fill the Olympic Stadium 5 times over.
One of the visitors in Paris, IAC Chairman Barry Diller, the media mogul and Democratic donor, called for President Biden to end his reelection bid, and he's rooting for the VP.
Do not discount Kamala Harris.
Why the veteran media exec is no longer in the running for Paramount Global.
It is unwise to get in an auction with someone who has a pretty much unlimited balance sheet.
That balance sheet is Larry Ellison's, of course, personal bank account.
Plus, what he hopes to see in the next administration, like a change from the FTC's Lena Khan.
Would you lobby for that?
Yeah, I would.
You would?
Yeah, I think she's a dope.
You've left me speechless.
We're in New York, and we're in the heart of Paris, just before the Olympic opening ceremonies.
10,000 athletes will be sailing on the Seine River, which is just to my left.
It's Friday, July 26th, 2024, and Squawk Pod begins right after this.
Stand Becky by in 3, 2, 1. Cue her, please.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Squawk Box here on CNBC. We are live from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Becky Quick, along with Joe Kernen. Andrew is live in Paris for the Olympic Games, and here we go. This is the biggie. We are finally kicking things off. Andrew, what do you have coming up for us today?
It is the big kickoff. Today is the day, and we're going to be seeing Joe and Becky here on Monday. Tonight's the night, though, where the opening ceremony is set to begin just in a few hours. 10,000 athletes will be sailing on the Seine River, which is just to my left this way in the heart of Paris, ending at the Eiffel Tower. It's a $10 billion budget for these Olympics, and it is a business. A lot of business folks coming from all over the world. They're flying in for the big event, many of them attending what turned out to be a star-studded gala last night. Ahead of it, everybody from Bernard Arnault, Anna Wintour, Brian Roberts, of course, the CEO of this company, and Katzenberg, Charlize Theron, LeBron James, who's going to be on the Seine this evening, and then Snoop, who's going to be holding the torch on the way in. We do have a news alert we want to bring you. News overnight, and Becky and Joe, you're going to be hearing a lot of sirens throughout the broadcast here because of the security concerns. France's national railway company saying a service on 3 high-speed rail trains disrupted today because of an arson attack that took place last night. The company described it as a massive coordinated attack to paralyze the rail network, saying 800,000 travelers would be affected. The situation expected to last all weekend while repairs are carried out. Now, France's transportation minister saying the investigation will be a criminal one. And as I said, you're going to be hearing a lot of police. We want to talk all things Olympics, media, and so much more. Barry Diller, chairman and senior executive at IAC and Expedia, is here. You are in town. I saw you last evening. It's great to have you here. And what the Olympics does to bring like the world together in one place.
Well, you know, the amazing thing is the Olympics is this brotherhood of friendliness and sport and all good things. And we're doing it literally in an armed camp. I mean, you hear it in the background. You cannot go outside and not hear constant sirens. I've never seen so many different armed vehicles and machine guns and everything else. It's weird in this city that is usually joyous and peaceful and all of that stuff. I mean, it really is like an armed camp.
And you've been to many Olympics before.
I have been.
You're on the board of Coca-Cola.
Yes, I am.
They are a big sponsor of the Olympics.
Since they're the oldest sponsor of the Olympics. Started, I think, in 1924, somewhere.
Here's what I want to talk about.
Yeah.
There were probably 2 major topics of conversation last evening.
Yes.
One was this NBA deal. And there were a lot of people talking about what this NBA deal is going to mean.
Roger Goodell was there.
Roger Goodell was there as well from the NFL. And Adam Silver is going to be getting here a little bit later. But I want to talk about that. And then Jill Biden was at this, showed up at the event. And obviously, we're all talking about sport, but everybody talking about U.S. politics and what's it all going to mean. So I don't know where you want to start, but What's interesting to you?
I could start with this, that I almost got shot by the Secret Service last night. I would like to at least...
You were almost shot.
Oh, yes, quite.
But
quite close.
What
because
happened?
Unfortunately, although we have an apartment here, I couldn't go to it because it's in the red zone.
Right.
And getting from it to whatever. So I'm at the Coca-Cola Hotel. Unfortunately, Mrs. Biden is at the Coca-Cola Hotel. And I came back last night bedraggled from this, thing and day and all that noise. And I go to get through the barrier and they wouldn't let me through. So they said, oh, just a minute. Anyway, 30 minutes later, I thought, screw it. I'm an American citizen, which I've never actually declared in that stentorious way.
Yeah.
And I start walking through, and I am telling you, it was very close.
It was very close.
They nearly tackled me. All for being in the same residence as whatever the first.
You had also, though, called for Joe Biden to step down.
Yes,
which I don't think had any relation to your situation. Last
no,
night,
I do think it did, because she clearly hates me because I was involved in the process.
So tell us about your involvement in the process, and tell us about what you think now that Vice President Harris is running.
Well, I'd hoped, I thought it would be best if there was an open convention and a group of people, including Kamala, would run, and we'd have this joyous process which would have so much energy and excitement. It'd be such a democratic thing to do. Unfortunately, although I think the end result is not, but unfortunately, instead of the open convention, and by the way, it speaks to the competence of, and do not discount Kamala Harris, because within a millisecond of Biden telling her, I'm not going, she mobilized her forces, and within 12 hours, she shut everyone else down. And completely, like a closed, locked door. It was her. She organized the endorsements, leading with the Clintons, and then everybody else, except, of course, Obama, and God knows where he is, in Venezuela someplace, because he does not want to chime in, I guess, at this point. But
do you think he should chime in?
Well, of course he should. I mean,
and what do you want him to say? You want him to say?
It doesn't matter what I want him to say. He ought to. The idea that he's missing, every single Democrat has been heard from. Almost
Barry,
all.
just so you know,
They called her.
The news was early this morning. The Obamas did put out a call and put out a video where they called her and endorsed her.
I assumed they were going to, but anyway, they waited. I guess they
You were in
waited.
jail.
They waited.
I don't think you heard that. You were like being held down by
believe
by
me.
the Secret Service.
If I survive getting out of Paris without at least one gunshot wound.
Let me ask you separately, though. Jeffrey Katzenberg was here as well.
Yes.
He's been out there raising money. He's now going to raise money for the Harris campaign. They've been very successful thus far. When you talk to other business leaders here, do you get the sense that some of those who had even switched to Trump will switch back?
I think it's possible, yeah, I would hope so. I mean, listen, they are a herd of pragmatists. And when the wind shifted and it was really clear if Biden was staying in, Trump was going to be president, I think when that changed, I think, again, for everybody, and it certainly did for people who were wavering or who said, for economic reasons, oh, let's chime into Trump quickly.
What is your sense of the way she would treat regulation and the like? If you go back and look at
I think it's unknown. I don't think you can make judgments. I don't think you can ever make judgments on positions people took in the past. Because part of
we do it. By the way, we look at positions that Donald Trump took in the past, and we say, well, then now he's flip-flopping, or this is how, or you have to.
But everybody flip-flops because conditions change. You run in the primary to the left or to the right in order to get it. Then when you get the nomination, you cove towards the center, which is sensible to do. It's all pragmatic. There's no, let's not talk about honesty in these contexts.
But there have been reports that a number of prominent Democrats have been lobbying Harris to drop people like Lina Khan. Do you think that that's going to happen? And would you lobby for that?
Yeah, I would.
You would?
Yeah, I think she's a dope.
You've left me speechless.
Barry, what's the biggest problem with just the regulatory, the idea that nobody's allowed to do any mergers or acquisitions with Lina Khan? What's your biggest issue?
I think what it is that there's an absolute conviction based upon what she has done that almost anything that business wants to do to expand itself, to combine with others for efficiency and other reasons, is just not allowed. It's almost like it's a wet blanket that has been thrown on all of this. And I don't think that's productive. I mean, look, there are very clear cases where competition needs to be regulated, et cetera, but it seems her point of view is everything is bad and everyone is bad.
I would have thought that you would have liked her to some degree, given some of your issues with big tech, like Google and others.
Why would, no. My issues are with anything that is a monopoly. And when you have a monopoly, you need regulation. Some monopolies, as we know, are natural or whatever.
But she's going after what I would imagine are companies that you think are monopolies.
Well, she's going after everything is the problem. Listen, tactically going after stuff that is clearly deserves to be fought or whatever, great. But she's after everything. She's after, Andrew, you have a little piece of something on your, no.
There you go. Thank you.
No, stop it.
This is,
see?
You can see the love. You can see the love. Thank you. Let me ask you.
Now you can attack me.
I want to ask, Barry, not just about Lina Khan, but you still think it's probably going to be a pretty close election, I would think, Barry. And I'm wondering whether you think that the reset will be easy for Vice President Harris, because as a media guy, you face reality as much as anyone.
I sure hope so, Joe. I hope.
Here's what someone asked: how was she transformed into what a lot of Americans thought was, this is harsh, but an embarrassing incompetent, to the coolest, most inspirational leader in the world in a single day? She was transformed, and there's a cult of personality, but no one knows really what the cult of personality for Kamala Harris. What is it that you believe in with her, other than she's not Donald Trump and she's not Joe Biden?
Oh no, just take as one data point what she did in the minute that she learned that Biden was standing down. What she mobilized, that's a champion. That's real political expertise. She shut everything and she shut everyone down in a millisecond. And by the way, there were huge forces that wanted it another way, that wanted an open convention. So don't doubt. Wait a second. Don't doubt that she has real competence. Now, I hope that she does not tack, let's call it left. I hope she is the center, little L candidate, and that she really does seize this moment. And if she does, she'll have the energy and excitement of the majority of the people, and she will be the next president.
I want to talk Paramount. I also want to talk NBA, but before I do that, a vice presidential pick. Who do you think she should pick? Who do you want?
I don't want to do this. It's not fair because I got stuff in the game.
You got stuff in the game?
No.
You're gonna. What does that mean?
I don't know.
Okay, well,
I don't want to do that. But by the way, if she does not, that's another. Look, there are going to be these little test points. The next big test point is, who does she choose? Hopefully, and I think she will, she'll choose somebody absolutely in the sphere of reasonability and certainly competence and experience. And if she does that, that little next data point will again ensure her possibilities.
Okay,
it can be one of a group.
Right. Let's talk about sports for a second. Let's talk about this NBA deal, because one of the other conversations last night that everybody was talking about was David Zaslav, Warner, TNT, not getting basketball, this litigation.
We don't know that they'll get it or not.
Well, my question, as somebody who's been involved in litigation, lots of litigation over the years, do you think that David Zaslav and Warner Brothers has a good case here, this matching rights issue? Do you think that the distinction between what they could offer between TNT and Max,
they definitely do,
is the same as what Amazon can offer?
They definitely do. I mean, I don't know how it'll turn out, but when you've got matching rights or first refusal rights or whatever, and you exercise them, then when you get into it, when people say, oh no, you didn't quite come up to what we thought it was, that's a real litigable matter. And so he's got a very good chance to at least muck it up so that they settle.
But what does the settlement look like? Do you think he could get games out of it, or do you think he gets money out of it?
No, he gets games.
You think he gets games out of it? So you think there's a,
well,
people have talked about a possibility of a fourth package.
If he doesn't get games out of it, then he's not the pretty smart executive I think he is.
Okay.
Money is not going to do him any good. He needs games.
And then finally, let's talk about
that's a big deal. So Amazon would have to shave off its package, you think, and give some back, or how do they redo that pool, Barry?
I don't know. I think they have to look. What I think he was smart to do is match it, get into the turmoil of it, and know that somehow, short of this ever going to court, which it never will, they will find some settlement that'll satisfy.
Becky, some of the speculation out here last night among some of the folks in the sports media business were that there could be a fourth package set up, and that actually they'd end up shaving games off of everybody.
Probably.
Shaving games from everybody to try to make to effectively create a fourth package.
Wow.
Before we let you go, and I know you got to go, Paramount, you were in the hunt. This Go Shop is still open. It isn't over yet.
No.
What do you think is going to happen here?
It's hard to predict, but I think it is over. I mean, it was over for us when it is unwise to get in an auction with someone who has a pretty much unlimited balance sheet.
That balance sheet is Larry Ellison's personal bank account.
Well, he's the one who's financing this.
Right.
Certainly isn't. I mean, he's putting up, of the $8 billion, he's putting up, I think, 6.2 or something. So to get into an auction with somebody who can simply say, I don't really care. And by the way, they've stolen the company, I think, essentially. Now, stolen is a harsh word.
Because you think they're getting it at such a cheap price. If it's such a cheap price, why wouldn't you go and buy it then?
Because the method at which they got this cheap price, which is this wild valuation for a private production company that averages their price wildly down, structurally, to compete with that, you actually have to put cash in.
Right.
So if you have to put cash in, then unfortunately the structural disadvantage they have becomes an advantage, because he can simply say, another billion, another two. And I did an auction for Paramount once. I don't think I would do it again.
We talked to John Rogers, who's a major investor in the company, earlier in the week, and he believed that somebody else could still step up. You think that's too difficult?
It's not that it's difficult. It's just that it probably takes about $9 billion of capital.
Okay.
And even if you did that, because we gamed that, even if you did that, there's a really good chance that he'll say, I'll pay the nickel more.
Okay, so let me ask you a separate question. 5 years from now, are we going to look at this deal and say Larry Ellison was a genius and he made this work in a very big way? Or do you think that at these type of prices, it's almost too difficult economically? Forgetting about it being either...
No, excuse me.
Yep.
There's a great advantage. There's no question that Paramount has been mismanaged for many, many years, probably going back to Philippe Dumont. Mr. Dumont, or whatever his actual real name was. But so if you go back that far and you see that there's been a really long period of mismanagement, if the company's still breathing, it's a great opportunity. And the fact that they've actually been able, looks like they have been able to buy it at such a low value, I would think that you'd have to be not really very good to pull it off.
Hey, Barry, one real quick question on that. Do you think there would be lawsuits around this too from the shareholders, and that could eventually preempt a deal?
I'm shocked if there's not a huge amount of litigation on this. It really seems surprising for me, for the simple fact that to ordinary Paramount shareholders, just if you want to share a stock of Paramount and you are being asked to merge into the company in your shares, to dilute your shares by 40% or some huge number, that you'd say, no, you can't do that. Now, what does it end up being in litigation? I doubt there's injunctive relief, so it's probably a litigation goes on for years.
Barry Diller, we got to say thank you for an amazing
Nice to
way
be here.
to kick off.
And you know what?
And we have
shut these frigging sirens down. Please tell the French
we have a
authorities.
police escort for you. We have a police escort for you downstairs to get
This
to.
is driving us. We're all
to
gonna be deaf.
Barry Diller, everybody.
Just listen to this.
Joe, I'm going to send it back to you.
I hope they're not still looking for Barry with all those sirens. They're like, where is that? We saw he headed up there towards where Andrew's sitting. That's what I'm worried about. How are you leaving, Barry? You get the hoodie on and slink out of there.
My normal disguise.
Barry Diller, never one to hold back on just about every issue, and we touch so many of them, guys.
Yes, he is. He says some funny stuff too, and you never know. You never know.
Whatever he thinks, which is so refreshing.
Just tee it up, and see what happens. But yeah, interesting.
Yeah, it is one of the more entertaining things we ever do because most people will not tell you exactly what they're thinking. They're calculating, and they're not going to say that stuff on air. Barry says what he thinks on air.
It's usually a pretty good idea if you're really wondering. You know, in the past, if you're wondering, don't say it. I've learned.
He doesn't care. That's why it's great.
He's different, though. He doesn't have to.
He doesn't have to
show up every day on TV.
Tease will be next.
Coming up on Squawk Pod, the other big presence in Paris these next few weeks, Airbnb, if you can book one. CEO Brian Chesky is pushing his company to new heights, but he's also getting back to his roots.
Airbnb was designed for events. As you know, we started for a design conference because hotels are sold out.
The hottest place to stay during the Olympics. Spoiler, it's at the Musée d'Orsay.
10,000? What's a couple thousand, Brian?
What people would pay for this, I mean, they would have paid a lot more than that.
The scoop on stays these Paris Games, right after this. Welcome back to Squawk Pod with Joe Kernen, Becky Quick, and Andrew Ross Sorkin.
Up and Andrew, Q.
Welcome back to Squawk Box live from Paris this morning ahead of the opening ceremonies of these summer games. Airbnb rolling out one of a kind, I should say, icons here in Paris at the Musée d'Orsay. And join us right now, first on CNBC, is Brian Chesky. He's the co-founder and CEO of Airbnb. And this is a bit of an unusual interview. We were going to do this in person, Brian, but A, we get to see where you are, and B, as we keep mentioning, because you're going to be hearing more sirens behind me, the streets of Paris now at 1 p.m., many of which have been shut down. So it's getting harder and harder to get around the city. But Brian, it's nice to see you. You are at one of the newest icons of Airbnb. Tell us where you are and what you're doing.
Yeah, so I am in the famous clock tower of the Musée d'Orsay, and we basically turned this clock tower into one of the most remarkable Airbnbs on earth. This room was designed by the designer who designed the Olympic torch, which is behind me. This overlooks the River Seine. And if we were to walk out on this terrace, you see perhaps the best view of the opening game. This may very well be the best seat in the house. And this is part of a program called Icons on Airbnb, which are extraordinary experiences by the biggest icons in culture.
How far do you think you can take this icon piece of the business? And is the icon piece of the business a profitable one, or is it more for marketing? How do you think about it?
Yeah, this is much more about brand building, but I think this is a sign of things to come because we think, one of the things we wanted to do is really keep Airbnb top of mind and be able to reach new audiences and be able to demonstrate that Airbnb isn't just about a place to stay, it's about experiences. And one of the things we want to do is take the magic of icons and bring it to millions of people, experiences they can book. And so I think this is just a little bit of a hint of where we're going. But for now, this is a little bit more brand building.
But talk also, if you could, about what's happening here at the Olympics. You are housing, I believe, hundreds of thousands of people during the next 2 weeks here.
Yeah, it's crazy, Andrew. I mean, we are literally hosting hundreds of thousands of people. In fact, the number of people we're hosting, you could fill the Olympic Stadium 5 times over. This is the biggest event in Airbnb history. It's the biggest hosting event ever. And I think this speaks to something, which is that Airbnb was designed for events. As you know, we started for a design conference because hotels are sold out. And often when there are these giant events, hotels are sold out. And so we allow large events like the Olympics to increase capacity. And what we also do is allow prices to stay much more affordable. So to imagine being able to have 5 times Olympic Stadium here, it's been a huge operation. Really proud of our team.
So Becky, I think, has got a question back in New York. Before we get to that, just one quick question. how much money will a lot of the folks who, by the way, have left this city but opened up their homes to Airbnb make?
Well, we estimated the overall I don't have that number off the top of my head, but we estimated the overall economic impact of the guests coming to Paris on Airbnb, and it's about $1 billion of economic impact to the city from all these guests. And we believe a large percent of this economic impact is incremental. We don't imagine all these guests obviously would have come because they would have had nowhere to stay. So it's pretty amazing. The average host here in Paris makes $2,200, and we have 150,000 apartments in homes in Paris and Airbnb, and 40% have been added just this year alone.
Becky?
Thanks, Andrew. But Brian, quick question. How much is the room that you're in cost per night? Because it looks amazing, first of all. And second of all, why are you in it 7 hours before the opening ceremony? Did anybody rent it for today?
Yeah. So someone did. It was a bit more of a promotion. So, if we charged this, it would have gone for many thousands of dollars. But instead, we opened it up and we allowed people to apply, and we picked some lucky winners. There's a couple from California. They won this. But these icon experiences, millions of people have tried to stay in them. We got more demand than we should have expected, although we should probably have anticipated a lot of people wanting to stay here.
What's a couple thousand? 10,000? What's a couple thousand, Brian?
People, what people would pay for this? I mean, they would have paid a lot more than that. I mean, think about it. If you have like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people applying, God knows what this is. This is truly, not priceless, but it's pretty close. It's a once in a lifetime experience. And that's what a lot of our experiences are.
Yeah. That's so cool.
Hey, Brian. Talking about maybe a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Yesterday, I believe you were at lunch with President Macron, along with Elon Musk and a whole number of other business executives. Curious what everybody talked about and what the sense was, not just of these Olympic Games, but of the broader economy.
Yeah, there were a number of things being discussed. I'd say maybe two big topics that stuck out to me. One is just the broad economic impact of the Olympic Games here in Paris. It was not lost that a lot of the CEOs were participating in some way, providing service for the Olympics. I highlighted, obviously, the hundreds of thousands of people staying in Paris and Airbnb. Another topic was just the changing nature of the economy, probably powered by AI and robotics, and what that's going to mean for the next generation. One of the points I made is, though you could imagine all the jobs that will be in the near term potentially automated by AI, some of the jobs of the heart, hosting on Airbnb, travel experiences, are going to be here to stay for quite a long time. So that's one of the things I highlighted.
When you think about this summer and travel, what are you seeing right now? We keep talking about the YOLO, post-pandemic YOLO experience. It seems to have not stopped.
I think that one of the things we've learned is, whether there's a pandemic or not a pandemic, people aren't going to stop traveling. I think traveling is innate to us. People dream of traveling. If you ask people if you had all the money in the world, what would you do? Most people say they travel. And I think Airbnb is going to be continually the place for the next generation goes do that.
Becky?
Oh, Andrew, thank you. Brian, we woke up this morning to the news that the French rail system had suffered a malicious arson attack, and this is pretty massive. It could impact up to 800,000 people. What do you know about it, just in terms of the impact it'll have on your guests who are showing up or hoping to show up today?
We haven't seen any immediate impact. We work really on a lot of contingency plans. We really try to help guests. We have staffed significantly more customer support agents to be able to handle all the guests here. We have a number of contingencies, so if people aren't able to get into the Airbnb, we try to make sure we have reserve inventory available for them. But so far, there's been a lot of good continuity of service.
Hey, Brian, one other travel question, which is, we've heard now from a number of the airlines who've disappointed, at least in terms of what their projections might be, given their prices are starting to come down on tickets on airplanes. How does that relate to the price of Airbnb rooms and apartments and things?
Yeah, in Paris, or just more generally? I assume you mean in Paris.
Both, actually.
Oh. Well, affordability is really, really critical to Airbnb, and that's something we've been focused on for the last year and a half. And one of the things we've seen is, in the last year, hotels have increased their prices fairly considerably, where Airbnb prices on a mix shift basis have approximately stayed the same. So we've seen our prices be pretty moderate. I think as cost of flights go down, I would expect demand on Airbnb to go up. That would be the actual natural, intuitive conclusion. We've seen very, very strong demand throughout the summer this year around the world, both domestic travel, people traveling in their country, and people crossing borders. I mean, certainly a lot of Americans are going to Europe this year. If there's one single trend, that's the big one, I'd say.
Brian, it is great to see you. We appreciate you joining us. Have fun tonight at the opening ceremony. It sounds like you have the best view. Please wave to LeBron James and Coco Gauff if you see her. Thanks.
Well, thank you for having me. All right. See you, Andrew.
The Olympic opening ceremony is set to kick off in just a couple of hours. For our part, we're going to be here all next week. Becky and Joe coming over, and we're going to be bringing you a whole bunch of huge interviews with the CEOs of Snap. We've got the CEO of Ralph Lauren, David Solomon of Goldman Sachs, and so many others, plus Olympic champion sprinter Michael Johnson, the owner of the Washington Spirit Alibaba president Michael Evans is going to be here, and the co-CEOs of On Sneakers. All this coming against the backdrop of what has turned out to be some chaos here in France, as the National Rail Network calling a series of coordinated arson attacks that took place last night, damaging facilities and severely impacting service, including the Eurostar, and getting down to Lille, where the basketball team is set to begin playing on Sunday. But a lot of excitement before tonight's opening ceremonies. Guys, I ran into LeBron James last night, and we had a whole conversation about what it meant to him to hold the flag tonight and be one of those flag bearers. And then I ran into Snoop Dogg, who's going to be carrying the torch. He was wearing I don't know if we have a picture of it, a gold suit, top to bottom, full-on gold suit.
Why is Snoop
so
carrying
excited.
the torch?
So, you're going to see Snoop Dogg.
But why is
tonight.
he carrying the torch?
He's one of the last torchbearers. You're going to see it later this evening. And he has this. He was wearing this amazing gold suit,
for him.
top to bottom, and he couldn't be more excited about this. The excitement and just the energy here is really quite electric. Despite all the security stuff we've been talking about, when you see athletes and some of the folks who are going to be playing in these games, they have spent their whole career waiting for this very moment, and to be here,
building up to
I have
it.
the opportunity to watch it. And it's quite a thing.
It's amazing.
We need
true.
to go. No, I know. I'm saying that okay, I'm coming. We definitely.
Oh, you mean you have to come?
Finally.
Okay, I thought you were like, we got to end the show.
We're definitely coming.
The games begin, by the way, at 7:30 on NBC Eastern Time.
And we
of course,
are going to be watching.
Covering all of it.
Andrew, we will see you, I guess, tomorrow.
Yep.
And we can't wait for it next week, Monday.
No, you
Wednesday.
will. I won't see you tomorrow. I'll see you on Sunday.
You'll see us Sunday. Okay.
Yeah.
That does it for us. Make sure you join us in Paris next week.
That's the podcast for today and for the week. If you're in Paris, enjoy. And if you aren't, you can still catch the opening ceremonies on just about every NBC platform. Peacock, NBC.com, NBCOlympics.com, the NBC app, the NBC Olympics app, and of course, good old cable.
A huge lineup of guests next week from Paris as well.
Squawk Box is hosted by Joe Kernen, Becky Quick, and Andrew Ross Sorkin. Tune in weekday mornings on CNBC at 6 Eastern. We'll have some great Paris Olympics coverage right here on Squawk Pod all next week. I'm headed to the airport right now as soon as I finish this podcast. So make sure you follow us wherever you're listening and turn on those notifications. Have a great weekend and à bientôt.
We are clear. Thanks, guys.